start off, this basic project I have open just has a basic scene where I can control a cube. This is not important. This is just an example game. And so you might want for your game a main menu, a pause menu, a UI to display information, stuff like that. And that's kind of what we're going to go over here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a main menu for this game. And so we have sample scene. That's what I have right here. And we're just going to make a new scene for our menu. So you can just press create and then scene. And we'll just call it main menu. Scenes are kind of like levels if anyone's unfamiliar with scenes. And so you can just go into your main menu scene by double clicking it in the hierarchy, and it's completely blank. And we just want a menu here that has a play game and quit game button. So I'll right click in the hierarchy, go to UI and a canvas. Canvases are just rectangles that will contain all your UI information. On the right side here, we want to make sure that our canvas is screen space overlay, so that it is basically going to fit the entirety of our screen. No matter how small or big our screen is, it is going to fit itself to that. Now the side effect of that is it makes the canvas absolutely massive. But what you can do is just click the canvas here and press F, and it will focus you to the size of the canvas so you can more accurately edit what's on it. So first thing, we'll probably want some text. So you can right click on here and go to UI and right click on the canvas because you want to create your UI objects as a child of the canvas because they're contained in the canvas.
Yeah. Also, if anyone falls behind and needs anything, just raise your hand and I can. Right.
So I created the and so okay, what you're going to do is go to UI. We want to add text. Unity used to have its own built-in text stuff, but now it completely relies on TextMesh Pro, which is just a add-on that allows you to do a lot of stuff with text. This is a good thing to have in your project. So just click TextMesh Pro. You're going to import the TMP essentials. You're basically going to want to do this for every project you create. And now we have text. And so we want this to just like display our text for our game. But you also want it to scale to any size. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the rectangle transform on this. We're going to set it to this option here, which scales it to basically fit the entire canvas. And then we will set it to 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, no matter what our screen size is, if we go to the game, okay, for some reason it went to world space, screen space, please. Yeah, so now the text is always in the same place, anchored, no matter how big or small our viewport gets. But since it's the main menu text, we kind of want it to be in the center. So you can go to your TextMesh Pro options here, and just like in Microsoft Word or anything else, you can set the alignment. We also might want it to be a little further down. You can grab this and scale it like that, if that's how you want to do it. Or if you want it to, well, yeah, that works. You can just scale it like that, these little options here. And we'll just say this is the main menu and set it to a much larger number. Now we want to add buttons because we want to be able to, from this menu, go play our game. And so you can just right click on the canvas again, go to UI and button. It's going to be button TextMesh Pro. And now you've got a button. We go to our game, we have a button. But if we click on it in the game, it's not going to do anything because we haven't given it any behaviors yet. So we can click on it all we want, doesn't do anything. You can customize your buttons on the right side here. There's all these different colors. So I can make it like green if it's highlighted. Maybe I'll make it green if it's selected as well. And then if you play the game, it'll turn green when you highlight it. But we need to make it actually do something. So in order to do that, we'll have to have a script. But this will be an extremely simple script. So we can just create a new script called main menu. Just create an add. And in this script, we want to have, basically we want to contain our behaviors for what our two buttons do. So we'll make a public void play game and a public void quit game. These are just two generic functions right now. They don't do anything yet. On quit game, it's very simple. All we have to do is just type application.quit. That automatically just makes the game quit. It won't work in the editor, but when you build the game as an executable for Windows, that is how you'll be able to exit the game. For play game, we need to load our different scene, because if you remember, our game was in a completely different scene than the one we're in right now. And so in order to do that, we at the top do using Unity Engine.scene management. Then in play game, we can say scene manager, this is an object that exists in Unity Engine, which has all the information you need to go between scenes, get information about scenes. .load scene. And we'll put 1 in there for now. What this does is it uses an index. Every scene in your game is going to have a value associated with it, an integer value, which is a whole number. But our game needs to know what numbers the scenes are. So if we go to our editor and click File, Build Settings, it brings up this menu here. I usually like to dock this over here because you'll probably be building at least somewhat often. And in the build settings, it displays the scenes that you have in your build. Currently, we haven't told it what scenes we even want the game to play. So if we click Add Open Scenes, it'll add the main menu right here. And you can see the main menu is given a value of 0 on the right side. We also want so if you want to save the main menu scene and open your game scene again, we want to add that as well. So we click Add Open Scenes, and now you can see that sample scene is given the index of 1. And so now, this function, since we gave it 1, when this is called, it'll load the scene at index 1, which we can see is our sample scene right here. But we need to tell the button to do that. And the way we can do that is if you go and highlight your button here, there's this onClick function down here. This onClick is a list of functions to call whenever the button is clicked. So if we add to this list, we need an object and its function. And we want to use this main menu script that we added earlier. So in here, we will drag the canvas object, click on the function, click main menu, play game. So it knows now the button says, okay, whenever I'm clicked, I'll take our canvas object, get the main menu script from it, and then call the play game function, which will load our game. So we can rename this button to the play game button. And we can edit the text by pulling this drop down here. It has a TextMesh Pro object tied to it. And we can edit the text to say play game. We also want a quit game button. So we can just add another UI button. drag it down a little bit, and then do the same thing. On the on click, we want to call main menu, quit game. So now, if we were to play this game, the quit game button's not going to do anything because we're in the editor. In the editor, you can't really quit the game. But if we click play game, it loads our scene. So we've got a pretty decent main menu going on here. We can rename the second button to quit. So now this is what our main menu looks like. The default Unity skybox is pretty ugly. So we can go to the main camera. If this is just a basic menu, we don't have anything 3D going on, we can change the background, the clear flag, to instead of being a skybox, we can make it a solid color. So this basically means if the camera doesn't hit an object to render, it will this tells it what to render behind it. Usually you want to render a skybox behind it, but we can choose a solid color. We can make it as obnoxious as we want, or we can make it a little dimmer. But yeah, that's kind of the basics with the main menu.
Raise your hand if you are caught up.
Not.
Okay, what are people missing? Okay. Is there anyone who is like needs to be caught up?
I'm just trying to follow along,
Yeah.
but I got lost along the way.
Can I just
Yeah, for sure. So it's very simple. It's like 4 lines.
Is that right? Okay.
And so if you wanted to have like well, I guess you wouldn't even have to do a separate scene for like settings. You could probably just have call something in.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Let's you can actually do that just with buttons. So let's say I wanted to make a settings menu that had, all right, I'll create an empty here, and let's say that this button, and this text are part of the main menu. And then I can create another empty, and let's just put a thing of text on it, and just say this is the settings.
How do you change the text of button?
You just go to the TextMesh Pro object, which is under it, and you can just edit the text there.
Oh.
And we can give the settings menu a button. I'm not used to them having TextMesh Pro be the default now. And then we don't want the settings menu on by default. And on the main menu, we can add another button just called, and we can make it just say settings. And what I usually do for this is you can go to the on-click function of the button, and you can say, whenever this is clicked, I want it to set the main menu to be inactive, and I want it to set the settings menu to be active. Yeah, set active. Yep, and then on the settings menu, just make the button do the inverse of that. So you would just say, I want to make the settings menu not active and make the main menu active. And so now, like if we play the game, we click settings, brings us to settings, we click this button, takes us back to the main menu. So we can go between them pretty easily. That's kind of the basics with the main menu. And so what if we wanted to pause our game? Or, we're playing our game and we want to quit. Right now you'd have to Alt F4. We don't want to make the user have to do that. So we can add a pause menu to our game. So you can go into your game scene and create UI canvas just like we did earlier. And we can call it the pause menu. And we can just add, the same buttons and everything we did on the main menu. So let's give it some UI TextMesh Pro. we can just say paused as the text here, and then we can put a UI button, and we can say this is resume. We can create another button for main menu, and we can create a third button for quitting, just getting rid of the application. And we are just going to do basically the exact same thing, but this time we'll create a pause menu script for our pause menu. And I'll create a empty game object here to contain all of our pause menu UI elements. So what we basically have here is we have the pause menu. This is a canvas. And then we have an empty game object that contains all the buttons and text within our canvas. That way we can set it active/inactive whenever we want to. So we can just add a component here, a new script called pause menu. And we're basically going to do almost a lot of the exact same things we did before. We're going to say using Unity engine.scene management. We're going to, we don't need start. We might need update later, but for now, we're just going to say a public void return to menu. And because we already know the scene number, we can just do scene manager.load scene 0 because that's what our main menu was on. We can say public void quit, not on application quit, but just quit. And we can just say application.quit. But pausing is what's going to be a little more nuanced. So
Where is this?
it's in a script.
Well, yeah, but like, which script is it attached? Like, what object is it attached to?
So I attached this to my pause menu.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I need to add a component to pause menu.
we'll add a canvas for the pause menu. Let's do it this way. We have our canvas for the pause menu here, and then we're just going to create another object called the pause menu manager. And that's what our pause menu script is going to be on. It's just a little manager class. It'll manage the pause menu.
Okay, so
So you have your
what new object do I create with pause menu manager?
just an empty object, completely. Its only purpose is going to be to have this
Create
script.
empty?
Yes.
Okay.
So we want the player basically when they press escape for the game to be paused. So we can just in update say if key input dot get key code dot escape. So if they're pressing escape, we will just set so we'll create a private bool paused, and we'll set paused equal to true.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then we will say pause game. But we don't have a method for pause game, so we'll make one. So we have our public void pause game. None of this. And so the first thing you want to do when you pause the game is you want time to freeze. So in pause game, we'll say time.timescale equals 0. So that's basically the scale at which time moves in the game, and 0 will just make everything freeze. We also want to set our pause menu to be active. So we can we need a reference to the pause menu, so we can set it active. So we can say serialize field, private, game object, pause menu. Serialize field basically makes it to where this variable can be seen in the editor and can be assigned. Private is just good coding practices. Nobody else needs to see it, so it's private. And then game object's the type of object we're getting. And so in pause game, we want to set the pause menu dot set active true because we want it to be active. And that's basically all we need to do. We just freeze the game, set our menu active, and we're good. But then we also need to resume the game at some point. So in resume game, we'll just do the exact opposite. We will just set the pause menu to false, and then set the timescale back to 1. And that's basically it. Yep.
It doesn't need your quick input to like resume the game.
So we're going to resume the game using a button. Yeah.
So the buttons don't require any sort of time scale. They run on events rather than based on like the overall timeline, so they will still work fine when your time scale 0.
Yep.
If you wanted to hit escape to resume, you could just put an if statement in that if statement to see if it's already paused.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that gets a little tricky because of timescale, because update stops running when timescale is 0.
Oh yeah.
But you would have to tie it to an event. But doing it through a button is totally passable and a very easy thing to do.
I guess you can only do it in the new Unity.
Yeah. So if we go back here, our pause menu. So our pause menu manager, we need to assign this object. So we can go ahead and do that. And now that we've assigned that, we want to set the pause menu to inactive so that we don't see it when we're playing the game. We can move around our guy, but if I press escape, it pauses. Perfect. But our buttons don't do nothing. So we can go ahead and assign the click values for our buttons just like we did in the main menu. You just drag your pause menu manager, choose the pause menu script, and then so this will be our resume game button. So we'll click resume game. This will be our quit button. So we'll do the exact same thing, but we'll do, or no, this will be return to main menu. And then this will be our quit button. So, cool. Now if we go in our game, we can make our cube jump around, but we froze time. We can go back to the main menu, go back to the game again. But there's our first bug. Time is still frozen. We forgot to unfreeze time when we went back to the main menu. So you can just fix that by saying whenever we return to the main menu, you just also want to set the time.timescale equal to 1. Because basically, whenever this is being run, you know that the game is paused, which means that time is 0, and we need to set it back to 1. So we just put that in our return to menu. And then we go in the game, click main menu, click play game, we're all good. Click resume, we're all good. So yeah, that's the basics of a pause menu and a main menu. Do you have any questions so far?
Can you go back to the script?
Sure. And I'm gonna upload this project after, so y'all don't have to worry too much about missing anything. And it's also something like, this is a very basic setup for this kind of stuff, and one that will pretty much work for any game. So if y'all need to just look at this and kind of implement it into your game jam game, that's kind of half the purpose of the workshop. What's up?
Do you know like how time scale affects like time.time? Is that like an in-game representation of time, or is that real time?
Time.time?
Yeah.
What is
I think time to time's return current game time, I believe.
Why don't we test it out? Where's my update?
My
Time.
assumption would be that it's doing game time rather than real time, so it would be stopped. But I mean, if it's real time, no real time is going to be affected by your pausing because any real time will be grabbed from the computer itself, and your game engine has no control over that.
Yeah, so we're printing out time.time every single frame, and it keeps going up. But if I pause the game, it becomes static. So time.time is in-game time. Yeah.
Alright, thanks.
It just moves really slowly. It doesn't become fully static. Or
Mm,
never mind, that's the real time.
yeah, no, it looks completely static. All right, and so one more thing we'll do here is basically I'll show you how you could display a variable on a menu. So we can take the text on the pause menu, and we'll just edit that to say basically how many frames have passed. So you would do this just by getting a reference to a text object, which in order to do that, you'll need using TM Pro because we're using TMP. And it'll be a TMP underscore text text. And all you need to do is basically within your script, take your text variable and say text dot text equals a string. So it can literally be anything. So, I mean, we could set it to time.time even, unless it doesn't like that. Cannot implicitly convert to float to string? Really? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can just need to do some string concatenation. So now whenever we need to give it the reference to the text. But if we pause the game now, we will get, basically instead of saying pause, it's going to give us the game time. Yeah, so 1.05247, 1.3, give it a few seconds, 3.1. And so that's something you could use to display maybe a score or the amount of time you have remaining, something like that. All you need is just to get a reference to a text object and then set that text object's text to be a string. So that's kind of the basics of UI. Thank y'all, and good luck on your Game Jam game.